What's up, gang? Cousin Justin here. In a world where everybody is fighting for a little bit of your attention, I just wanted to appreciate you giving me some of yours. Enjoy the episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Yo, did you hear?
That silver is at $100. You hear that?
I
Silver.
did not hear that. I did not hear that.
$100.
I heard OpenAI plans to take a cut of your discoveries.
Is that true?
Well, the headline says it's true.
Shit.
But as
What does
with
that even
most
mean? What does the
things,
discovery mean? What does that even mean?
so let me read the headline because I posted it today, and my first thought was, oh my God, OpenAI plans to take a cut of customers' AI-aided discoveries. Subscribe to read the full article on theinformation.com. Well, I am not subscribing to theinformation.com to get one article, but I saw that and I thought, wow, Sam Altman, man, fall from grace, absolute fall from grace. But thankfully, Reddit is undefeated and somebody provides the TLDR for us. Thank you, Redditors. It's not as bad as it seems, and I'll read it for everybody here. OpenAI is not planning to take a cut from individual users' inventions, products, or creative work just because they use OpenAI tools. The article discusses future enterprise revenue models, not consumer or creator usage. In certain large-scale negotiated partnerships, e.g. pharma, scientific research, enterprise R&D, OpenAI may co-develop specialized systems, provide deep infrastructure or custom models, enter explicit licensing or revenue sharing agreements. These agreements are opt-in, contractual, and agreed to upfront, similar to existing enterprise software or cloud partnerships. The
Now
stated
I get
goal
it.
is alignment at the enterprise level.
And stickiness.
Right. Well, here's the thing. AI is heavily, heavily subsidized right now. We do understand this, that at the moment, the cost of running these models is definitely more than the consumer pays. These things are incredibly useful, and OpenAI probably doesn't want to increase the subscription cost because they're probably preparing for the day nobody has to work, and then you're going to have to use your universal basic income to pay your freaking OpenAI subscription to be able to.
Well,
No.
let's talk about this for a second. What their hedge, right? Like they're definitely subsidizing a lot of this, but it really isn't. Like I'm sure it is, but what's really happening is a power user is being subsidized by a premium paid tier user that is not really taking advantage of the tooling. So, for example, you have somebody who is not using a huge amount of token reliance, somebody that's just using this as a general assistive tool, maybe you're writing some documents, maybe it's helping you reply some emails. You're really not banging on these platforms, but you pay your $20 a month. Some months you may not even use it at all, and yada, yada, yada. So to me, that's a great hedge. There's probably millions of people that are paying monthly that are using just a tiny little piece of it, which that is kind of what is subsidizing ultra power users. And then believe me, they are not naive to the fact that enterprises are outfitting the entire company on a single solution. And we hear this all the time, which is the stickiness of these platforms. They're all relatively the same, man. You want to use Grok, you want to use Llama, you want to use whatever, Gemini, they're all the
For
same
general
under the hood.
use, for the general user, yeah, probably like you could pick your favorite one, and if you're using this to like contest a medical bill and look some crap up, generally you're not going to find a huge amount of difference. Just use the one
Right.
that's available. The
Right.
big differences come in the specialized use cases. Yeah, I listen, we've talked about this too. What does the agency model look like in an age of AI? Does it look like, hey, we would prefer to have a cut of your success? So like we'll build and take the ride with you on good software ideas versus charging by the hour because the hour's worth so little now. So it's a very like there's an alternate business model here. And so OpenAI is probably saying, hey, we're going to provide all sorts of crazy AI infrastructure for a lot of projects. But in return for that, we have to kind of subsidize it, right? Like to do great medical research, it's probably worth it to humanity to try and do this research, subsidize it somehow. And then on the other end, you have to make a profit. But of course, this beckons the question. Pharma companies have this issue too. When they build a life-saving drug with millions and millions of dollars in research, how do they recoup that And then if you discover something truly life-saving, where is the ethical piece of this, right? How do you charge a person who can't afford it and like deny their right, they deny their right to life almost? There are certain things that get kind of complicated where it's like you need the money to do the research and you may get nowhere with this, but if you get somewhere, the thing is valuable enough that you have to, you're almost like as a human, you're almost obligated to provide this to people. AI is in some ways similar to this in that it is wildly useful to the average human, just like forgetting the work completion aspects of it, just the ability to have all of this human information available to you like this. Like the idea, I think about it, the idea that a few years ago we would Google something and comb through the web pages. And 20 years before that, you'd go to the card catalog at the library and you'd find the book, or you get 6 books and you'd have to flip through the books and skim them. The ability to access information is gone. It's so rapid, and I do think it's beneficial for humanity to have access to that information. Whether or not, then you start getting into misinformation and things like that. Let's kind of forget that. But I think there's always been misinformation. You only could consume it so quickly. Now you can consume it very quickly. It brings about new problems, but we're in an unprecedented time. But of course, I got trapped by the headline, as did most of the internet. And it doesn't help that this random publication called The Information is subscriber only. So that tons of people were probably like, I'm not reading that, I'm not subscribing. An industry that's hard, man. I don't really subscribe to like if I subscribe to this publication, would I ever read another article again? How many am I going to subscribe to? We're in a tricky time, man.
It's really, but do you remember though that Strictly from Nowhere originally began as a digital publication? Like we originally wanted to write our own content, and we originally had a website that felt like a combination of like a movie reel and like a living, breathing article from Hogwarts, from Harry Potter.
Oh,
do you remember that whole design concept?
We did have this idea. I think that it's really, look, I'm very excited about the future of content consumption like that. I do think you're going to have to do things like that to get people's attention. And I do think that we've been in an era where articles and content, it's always been constrained by like the cost of building something like that. And now you're like, well, maybe it's not so costly to do some really cool things. You know what I mean? With content and information and the gamification of this stuff.
Let's bring it back to the topic, which is, I think that the article is using a little bit of like a fear mongering, making people a little bit upset about something that like maybe they really don't understand. But your TLDR from Reddit is appropriate for what you're talking about right now. At some point, businesses, agencies, even freelancers, whoever they're going to be, you're going to choose your tool. Talk about like infrastructure tool. Like most businesses are running on like AWS proper. Like eventually you choose your tool. As software engineers, you choose a stack, a framework, and that's where you're living. So eventually I think you're going to find your way. We really have over-indexed on Claude Code for right now. But I think we're super new, and you may find something that's even better in the future. But for right now, what OpenAI is doing is trying to create a little bit of a stickiness and a stronghold, and I kind of respect that. They're going to work out enterprise level relationships that give them a path to prosperity and also incentivize those customers to remain sticky to their product. I think if you're taking a look at like an enterprise growth plan, that's like a textbook forward thinking play. Like you're still a SaaS business. You still have, crazy venture back. You have to find your way to profitability, dare I say to public tradability. And so I respect that. The title is misleading as it goes, but like as a business owner, I'm eventually going to make a decision for my company that says, okay, I have allegiance to this particular product. They are partnered with me in my success. And that shapes out the enterprise SaaS model that we've all participated in some shape or form over the last decade. So doesn't surprise me that there's a little fear mongering going on with this type of a headline. But if you really are reading through the article, to me, it sounds like a little bit of a symbiosis. It feels like a good thing for businesses to be able to rely on a technology partner. That's like almost what you want. And
It
so
is.
I find that interesting.
Well, the question is like, do people trust Sam Altman, right? I think that's also, his framework was originally like he was originally open source, then he decided not, then he's cruising through San Francisco in a Koenigsegg. Not that I have a problem with people making lots of money, but when your company hasn't made any real profit, it's kind of hard to imagine. It's kind
I
of
mean, it's
hard for
kind of
the
the way,
regular folk.
it's the way of the world, dude. This
Well,
is literally how that goes. And he's created something super valuable, and now he's being tasked with the path to profitability. And to me, I'm like, forget the man at the helm. I think the problem that is being solved, and I think the competitive landscape that's been created in combat for OpenAI is fantastic. And I'm here for it. And I got a front row with
and there's a
popcorn in my
lot of
hand and I'm
competition.
watching. There's a lot of
There's a
competition.
lot of healthy competition. The LLM technology is definitely not siloed to them. You've got tons of competitors now. It's definitely the thing. I mean, it's created such an amount of change. It's created this ability to interact with computers in an almost sci-fi fashion, right? Like the idea that I can interact with my computer in this way is incredible. It's just never existed before. So we've talked about this. This is how Tony Stark interacts with Jarvis. This is how Star Trek worked. This is, that you just kind of talk to the computer. This is like talking to droids, in Star Wars or something like that, maybe. So I think that we're all in all, I think we're going to end up in a net good place. There's just definitely going to be some net, and they definitely have to figure out profitability. They have to figure out environmental impact. They have to, this thing's using a ton of energy. I also think that because there is such a demand for this thing to remain useful, I think that there's going to be a lot of moves around that. And I think open source is probably going to be much, much better. I think 5 years from now, open source is going to be even awesome. It's already pretty viable. Like I've used open source models on my computer. They're not bad. Like, it's really just, do you have the machine that can run them and get all the data from them? But they really do work very well. And we're running Claude Code now in our project management tool. We built a complete with Claude button, and I was checking the cost, and it's like super minimal on that. Like we were just like, oh, let's see what the cost is on that API key. It's really not very like the cost effectiveness. Again, it's good, but as with most things, I think it kind of scales like this. You're like, oh, we're doing a few things, and then you put all the projects in, and Claude is running overnight, 24/7. Then you're like, oh wow, now I'm really running a bill. At what point does that bill become similar to human labor? I don't know. The human labor costs may come down a little bit. And then, I think there's all sorts of, I don't know where it's going, dude. I'd love to be able to come on here and say I got like a crazy prediction, but I feel like any prediction right now, take with a grain of salt. I don't really know where it's going, but I do foresee this type of partnership for sure, where all of these companies have a little stake in some of the research and some of the development they're doing, because they're not going to be able to make all that profit off subscription revenue. And they're definitely not going to be able to do that if their claim is that nobody's going to be working anymore and we're going to rely on governments cutting people checks to pay for this stuff. I go, that's not really sustainable. The government cuts you a check and you cut a piece of it to OpenAI to pay for this. That whole loop of people not working and somehow paying for internet and all the things is, I'm not seeing it. Maybe I'm crazy. Is anyone else out there? Do they have like an economic outlook that's different than mine? Again, would love to address it in the comments, but I'm fairly certain that people need to produce a thing to generate the income to use a thing. I don't see it, man. I don't see it, but I plan to be working.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what I find really interesting? I sent you an email yesterday. Shout out to Cody Sanchez. Cody, come on, man. Come on the podcast. Anywho, the boring business revolution is really important. I've been listening to Mike Rowe. We just, there's a lot of things that are happening, global economic summits. And like, what I find very interesting is the things that historically were important to, let's say, infrastructure are never more valuable today. So it's great that we're, pursuing the computer as an avenue, but let's also acknowledge the resurrection and the critical requirement of trade skills and the types of businesses that are going to boom, that are going to allow infrastructure to proliferate. And so I'm a student of that as well. While I have a business in a digital environment, I'm also extremely curious about where is money being transferred. You have a huge transfer of wealth happening in the baby boomer generation over the next 20 years as that generation starts to die off. And so I'm interested, just as an entrepreneur, in not only building software for those sectors as new businesses come online or businesses are successful to the next generation, but I also am very interested in just the business of the trades and how that's going to map back to infrastructure for software, infrastructure for AI, and other topics as well. So I don't know. Also, I don't know what my prediction is for the immediate future as well, as far as software is concerned, as far as, AI's participation in that. But I do
And
know,
who
as an
cares?
entrepreneur, you and me are going to continue to find our way. And who cares,
All you can do is ride the wave in front of you. You can't predict if the big one is coming. You got to see what's there and you got to catch it or you don't. And that's it. I think, you brought up another great point. Like businesses in the real world, I think experiences are going to be huge. Like I think about my friends who are climbing guides. I go, you're not going to go rock climbing with a robot. You're still going to, you might still, you still do it. I got that paintball gun hanging out back there. I might still want to go play. Like, dude, you're going to go play some paintball, like maybe that you'll play against some robots. I don't know. But I still think that that real experiences as a human, you're going to want to do, and those may even get even bigger. So businesses around in-person experiences, I think is going to be is huge future potential. We talked about all that stuff, so I definitely am a shout out to different businesses besides software. I'm always thinking about that because I think that that's a really interesting avenue for us to go down.
Well, dude, don't believe everything you read, first of all. These guys are not coming
That's
for
the
your
lesson
intellectual
today.
property. They're not coming for streams of revenue on your ideas. That's the lesson. Don't believe everything you read. But go buy some silver. This is not financial advice. Go buy yourself some silver, man. Yo, thanks
I
for a
got
good
opinions.
episode.
I got
See you on Monday.
I got some. See you on Monday,
I
bro.
know you do. I know you do. Who gave it to you?
You,
Peace, bro.
you're my silver man. You're my silver man. I hope so.